With your power disconnected from the car, we're going to proceed to take this starter out. There are two bolts in the back. You have to come in this way to take those bolts out. There's one of them, the one you're looking at right now with the ratchet and socket on it. It's the top one. The other one is kind of underneath the solenoid area, in that area. Not underneath, but generally in that area, roughly where the handle down in there on this side. I saw one video saying that you can do this job without taking the manifold off. I wouldn't attempt it, because just trying to get your hand back there with that ratchet and socket on, you won't be able to use a wrench. That's a taut head bolt, and I had to use two hands on that to break that bolt loose. Okay, so I don't see how you can get up in there with a wrench and take that off, especially with the manifold in place. All right, I just have this ratchet on so you will see the positioning. This is that double swivel ratchet. It swivels at the head and it also swivels down here. So you can move that around in different positions. Then I'm going to go ahead and take the wires off the starter right here. And there's a little one here and one down underneath. I've already sprayed them, so I won't run into any serious problem with things breaking off, hopefully, when I try to loosen the nuts. Right down here is the other bolt for the starter, and everything is loose, so this baby should come right out. I'd have to give it a little tap. Yes, I had to give it a pretty good whack right about there. Don't hit it on the solenoid, because especially if you're getting a reman, and you're going to have to turn this back in. I'm not even sure if it would make a difference, but I wouldn't do that. These screws are torqued E12, and what I found was once I broke them loose, and it turned out, but so far it became difficult to use the ratchet on there and wasn't loose enough to use my fingers. So what I did, I used a 10mm wrench to loosen it the rest of the way. It was tedious, but it worked. And I cannot imagine anybody doing this job with the manifold in the car, as I saw on one video. Okay, folks, it's a new day. I picked up the starter yesterday, and the intake manifold gasket set, which is on the left, and that tube you see sitting right there is valve grinding compound. Now, I'm not doing valves or anything of that nature, but I find this very useful, especially when you're trying to screw a nut or a bolt in a tight area. What I do is I place some of the compound on the thread, and then take my finger and kind of spread it on the thread, and I run it through the hole like this one here. Run it in and out, and what that does is clean the thread. Even though this is a new starter, the bolt might have a little corrosion on it or whatever. Just run it in and out, and when you're done, this is what I do. After running it in and out a number of times, I get some starting fluid, or you can use brake clean or carburetor clean, but I always use starting fluid because on cleaning greasy stuff, dirty stuff, because it dries fast and leaves no residue. In this case, it wouldn't matter if it leaves a residue or not. Spray that down, spray in the hole to clean that hole out. Okay, once you've done that, get a shop rag and wipe the thread off. You can feed a piece of shop rag in the hole all the way in and turn it and twist it around until you show that hole is nice and clean. And then what you do is you run the screw in again, and it should go in and out very easily. That way, when you're reaching in a difficult area like you will have to do on this car, you won't encounter much resistance in screwing that screw in the hole. Get a clean shop rag, hold it around the thread like this, and turn it as if you're loosening it, which would be in a counterclockwise position. But you keep turning it until the screw unscrews itself from the rag. That will help get any residue from the valve grounding compound off the thread and make it nice and clean. Then you take, again, that shop rag, shop towel, make it into a point, stick it in the hole, and turn it and clean that as best as you can. Screws in very easily. Okay? This should make the job a lot easier when you try to put the screw in to hold the solder in place. While taking this apart, I noticed that the socket would not fit on one of these all the way down. It was like going halfway down. So what I did, I used the same principle because of the rust on here. I used the same principle as I use on this thread part. Put some of the valve grinding compound on the top and work the socket in and out until it was able to fit in there properly all the way down. It's kind of awkward doing this thing with one hand. It's all the way down now. Before it was stopping like halfway down, and I was concerned that I was going to strip this head. And once it's stripped up in there, it will be all hell to get it out. All right, I have placed the two screws in place. As you can see, now I'm going to put the starter in and start the screws. Before putting the starter in place, I like to check and make sure that I have the right size socket or wrench for these screws here. Okay. It turns out they're exactly the same as the ones I used to take them out. They're 8mm on this, the little one, and a 10 on the bigger one here. All right, this one I'm not worried about because you can see it easily, and as you do to pick out the right tool for it. Okay, as you know, this starter is held in by two screws, and but there are actually 3 holes in the starter. There is one here, okay, and there are 2 for the screws to go into. This one here on the housing is like a dowel pin right there that fits in this hole to align the starter. So just get that in place, line the pin up, and slide it in. Once you line it up and slide that pin into the hole, the starter will stay in position, then you can proceed to turn the screw. I say the space is so tight, you won't be able to see me work the screw. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and tighten it. I'm actually turning the screw with just my thumb. If I hadn't cleaned the thread, I would have had a hard time getting it in. Now I've run this screw all the way in just with one finger, well, with one thumb. Okay, the starter in securely, nice and tight. And let me tell you what I found. I actually used, when I was taking this apart, a E14, but the true size for that screw head is 12. But I found when I tried to use it and putting it back in to tighten it, it was very difficult. In fact, I could not get that 12 to fit in there with the ratchet I was using because of the limitation in the space back there. So I had to go back and use the 14, and that worked fine. It did not slip. Okay, not quite finished with the starter job yet. Still have to connect the wires to it. But make sure when you're tightening, especially the big one that holds the positive wire cable, don't over tighten it, because this is like Bakelite plastic here. You could break that. All right. So if you want to, you can look up the torque specs, but I don't think it will be more than 10 foot-pound on that. That's just a guess. Now I'm gonna go and take care of the intake manifold area. What I'm gonna do is put pieces of shop towels, shop rag in these holes here, so I don't get any debris down in them, and clean up all this mess here. All right, and fill up all the holes with paper, the shop towels, and then clean this area out, get some compressed air and blow it off. All right, and I'll probably use my favorite cleaner, which would be starting fluid. Clean that off. And then after that, I'm gonna go around this side here and take off all the old gaskets and clean that area off also. What I will do is use a razor blade to just scrape the surface of this and scrape the surface down here. Or sometimes I'll use, what's the name of it? Scotch-Brite, and clean up the area. Okay, with the holes all plugged up with paper, take the razor blade and gently scrape around the hole. Take a little time, take your time. Once you've done that, then you can take this baby right here and just clean. Get all this stuff off. When that is off on all of them, do a better job than this. I'm gonna go over it some more. Right, then you clean the surface on the manifold. Valve cover manifold gasket seat didn't need much cleaning, just basically a wipe off. Because the old one didn't come out easily. Took a lot of tugging and trying to feed it out with a screwdriver, tiny screwdriver, trying to pry it out of the hole. But make sure while doing that you don't scratch or damage the surface. All right, so down there we have cleaned, where is it? Over there, as best as we could. And getting ready to mount this. Now, it will be difficult for me to show you the exact procedure, but we're going in reverse to the dismantle procedure. All right, make sure some of these hoses and wire connectors that were disconnected while removing get put on as snap back in place as you're installing the head. The valve cover. As you slide it down, feel and find all these wires and stuff and put them back in place, because once you lock this down, you may not be able to get them back in place easily. And over here, inspect all these hoses and all the connections where the coolant run through. Make sure they're in good shape, because this is the best time to replace any piece that might need replacing in the near future.